Hey, I'm Amy and welcome back. And it is the first, well, when I'm recording this, it's the 1st of September. So that means that we are going to be doing a little this is a big, because, I explained it last week or last month and the month before, but it is time for a what I watched in last month in August. And before we get started, I just want to say that my Patreon 3-year anniversary is on the 18th this month, and it's going to be super fun. I'm going to be doing a little bonus video. Usually I do like once a month a bonus review, but this month I'm going to be doing a bonus review and Q&A. So if you would like to participate in that, you can leave some questions in the description or in the comments down below. Or, you can hop over onto my Patreon, join up, post some questions and comment on any of the posts, and I will, answer them in this video on the 18th. So, check that out because my Patreon is super fun. I love my Patreon. I love the people on my Patreon. I do so much more stuff on there than I do on here. I do a ton of bonus reviews, and you get videos early, notes, podcasts, polls to pick reviews that go up on here. It's so much fun. It's a lot of fun. So, without further ado, let's get started with what I watched. Checking out my Letterboxd. And if you have watched the previous two, so the June and July what I watched videos, you will know that I watch some movies at 2 times speed. So I will have a lot of movies on here. I've already explained kind of why I do that. It's just so I can watch more. I have rules. I don't watch every movie at 2 times speed. It's just movies that I want to get through. It's not like 1001 movies or movies that I'm going to be doing a video on or a podcast episode on. So let's get started with the first. All I watched that day was Rodan. I don't know why. I don't remember what day that was, but after that, and also I'm going to go through this like super quick because it's going to be like a half an hour of just me talking about my Letterboxd. If there's something I would like to expand upon, I will. And then the next day I watched Invasion of Astro Monster, which I believe is another kaiju film because I was looking at the kaiju films on Criterion. And then that whole day, I think pretty much that entire day, I watched a ton of Charlie Chaplin and Méliès shorts because they were leaving Criterion at the end of August. So I watched just a bunch. I think I watched, oh wow, keep going. Okay, so I watched all, like pretty much every Charlie Chaplin and George Méliès short that they had on Criterion on the 2nd. After that, I watched a couple, I believe these are Carole Lombard films. They had a bunch of Carole Lombard films that were leaving as well, so I watched a bunch of hers in name only. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Vigil in the Night, Born Yesterday. I think all 3 of those. No, Judy Holliday was. So Born Yesterday, I really, really loved Born Yesterday. I've watched a ton of Judy Holliday movies throughout this month as well because there were a bunch of Judy Holliday movies leaving. So I watched a bunch of those, and Born Yesterday was probably my favorite. I think Vigil in the Night, that was also a Carole Lombard film. And then the next day I watched Full of Life, It Should Happen to You. I guess that's how you say that one. Solid Cadillac, Hands Across the Table, Virtue, No Man of Our Own, True Confession, Clash by Night, Robinson Crusoe, which I think is another George Méliès short that I had missed previously, and The Marrying Kind, which are some more Carole Lombard and Judy Holliday films. They're all great. I really love Judy Holliday. I did not realize, I didn't think I knew her as an actress before watching all of these. But I really, really love her as an actress. I think I've watched her entire filmography for the most part. There's maybe 2 or 3 that I have missed or can't quite find online. The next day was my, what I call it, teen dystopian kind of day where I watched all the Insurgent films and all of the Hunger Games films. I had seen the first 2 Divergent films and the first Well, I guess I had watched all the Hunger Games movies without realizing it. I thought I hadn't watched the last part, of the third one, or part 2 of the third. Yeah. Anyways, I had watched all of those. And don't like them. Like, Hunger Games is great, but I think The Maze Runner was actually a lot better. But I do love the first Hunger Games movie. It's fantastic. And I also watched a couple true crime kind of documentaries, Murder by the Coast, Sophie, a Murder in West Cork, which are great, like, true crime documentaries on Netflix. I also watched The Last Blockbuster and The Last Cruise. I enjoyed The Last Blockbuster just because it brought back some memories of going to Blockbuster or Family Video or my hometown video rental store. And The Last Cruise is kind of like, it talks about the cruise that was, I don't remember where it was stationed, but it might say in the description. Japan. It was on the coast of Japan, and it's basically the like nexus for a ton of like research for COVID-19 and stuff, just because it was like a big hotspot for COVID-19 at the beginning of the pandemic. The next day I watched both Suicide Squad movies because this is the day that Suicide Squad premiered on HBO. I was going to see it in theaters, but it didn't start until 7 o'clock, and I was like, that's way too late for me. I'm an old lady. I'm going to watch it on HBO and then go see it the next day. So I did go see it again the next day. I also watched Fanboys that day as well, and Bloodsucking Bastards, which if you have seen, I don't remember the movie that it's referencing. I don't remember even the actors in it. Anyways, Bloodsucking Bastards, it's okay. It's got Pedro Pascal in it, if that interests you. So I recommend that. I enjoyed Fanboys for the most part. It was fun, but it's definitely a 2000 movie. I'm going to skip past the first Suicide Squad. The next day I watched another, I believe this is another Judy Holliday film. The bells are ringing. It's cute. It's not like out of this world. It's probably not my favorite. I also watched the Suicide Squad again, this time in theaters, and I loved it even more. I you can see my star rating went up a half a star just because it was so much more fun in theaters. I also watched The Oxbow Incident, which was a 1001 that was leaving Criterion, along with Pink Flamingos, My Man Godfrey. Those were all leaving Criterion, and they were all 1001 movies. The Pink Flamingo wasn't kind of my thing. I love drag queens. I love going to drag shows. They're so much fun. But this movie was just not it for me. I think it is a John Waters. Yeah, it's a John Waters movie. I think that's the first of his movies that I've actually seen. And it was not something that I ever want to watch. And there was another John Waters movie on there that I did not end up watching. I was going to watch it, but because I did not like Pink Flamingos all that much, I was like, I'm probably not going to watch this. The next day was a bunch of 1001 movies. For the most part, I think some of them were 1001, some of them were just movies that were leaving Criterion in the month. I think the last ones I had to watch were Pandora and the Flying Dutchman, Knights of Cabria, and Body Heat. Those were the three left, I think, of the 1001s that were leaving Criterion, so I watched those. I also watched The Shawshank Redemption, which is a 1001 movie as well. First time watching it, absolutely loved that movie. I love it so much. Like, it's really good. I never had really thought about it or was like, it'll be okay. It'll probably be, like, really well done. But no, I actually, like, really, really loved it. I feel like I'm going through these really fast, but, you know, I like I said, there's a lot to get through. I also watched Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm and Key Largo. Those were two movies that were leaving the Criterion Channel. Brothers Bloom, which I think is one of the very few Rian Johnson movies I have not seen. Yeah, I mean, the rest of these are shorts or have not been released. So, like, the Knives Out sequels, and I think the rest of them are shorts. But, yeah, I was kind of wrapping up my Rian Johnson filmography that day. I also watched Terminal, which was not that great. I was really just watching it because it was a movie that I wanted to watch when it came out a couple years ago, but never went to the theater to actually see it because there was probably a ton of other things that I wanted to see instead. Big Time Adolescence, which is a Pete Davidson movie. It's okay. Val, which is the documentary by Val Kilmer about his life, and that was really great. I really enjoyed that. The next day, I watched Angels and Demons. I still have yet to watch... I rewatched Angels and Demons. I still have yet to watch the Inferno one, I think. It's like the third one in the Da Vinci Code trilogy thing, I guess, but I haven't watched that. It's hard to find online, I think. I also watched the 3 TMNT movies that are on HBO because I thought I had watched them when I was little. I wrote in my review for the first one is like, I have like a very vivid memory, plus there's like a video of me doing it, like a home video of me running around screaming turtle power, and I don't remember watching any Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stuff. I also watched Demolition Man that day, Speed, The Fugitive, Twister, Spielberg, which is a great, like it's long, but it's a great documentary about Steven Spielberg. I really also enjoyed Speed. I love Keanu Reeves. The Fugitive was surprisingly really great, and I thought I had seen Twister, but I think that might just have been in a ride, like at Universal in Orlando. They might have had this like walking tour, kind of like the movie backlot ride that they have in Universal in LA, but you like walk through, you get up and you kind of go through this wind simulator thing that's kind of like the Twister movie. That could have been what I was remembering, but I really enjoyed Twister. Demolition Man was okay. I'm not like the biggest Sylvester Stallone fan. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, I'm not the biggest Sylvester Stallone fan. But because I watched that and it had, blanking on her name, I should know her name, Sandra Bullock in it, then that's why I watched Speed, because I was like, oh, Speed's on my list to watch, so I'll just watch it right now. Then I went on a huge, I have like this box set of Abbott and Costello that I got from work, so I went through and watched all of the Abbott and Costello movies for like, I spent like almost 2 days watching Abbott and Costello, like that's all I did. And in between that, I also watched Scott Pilgrim. I rewatched it for probably the millionth time for the podcast. Great episode of the podcast because one of my co-hosts does not like Scott Pilgrim, and it's like one of the few movies from Edgar Wright that he does not like. And it was an interesting episode because one of my co-hosts really loves Scott Pilgrim. My other co-host doesn't, so it was kind of a nice discussion with that balance. Then, some more Abbott and Costello. Okay, and then we get to Transporter. I watched the first 2 Transporter movies. I'm not a huge fan of them. Sometimes Jason Statham doesn't need to do some things. And I also watched Olympus Has Fallen and London Has Fallen because I just needed some Gerard Butler, I guess. I don't know. More Abbott and Costello. I watched Angel Has Fallen to kind of complete that trilogy, although I think that there's another one coming out sometime. Free Guy was great. I had a lot of fun with that. I was supposed to see it like a month early, but I missed the day that it was supposed to go out. Like, the day that the screening was supposed to happen, I was at the theater for Snake Eyes, and I saw the line for the Free Guy screening that I had signed up for. But I had read it wrong, and I thought it was on Friday and not Thursday. So I really messed up on that, and I saw Snake Eyes instead of Free Guy when I could have seen Free Guy. Yeah, it was a big mistake on my part. And when I got back from Free Guy, I also watched Mr. Nanny, which that movie was a thing. Hulk Hogan. I did not enjoy it at all very much, but it was something that we had to watch. Well, I didn't have to watch it. I chose to watch it, but Then I think there's another, no. History is Made at Night, I think, was just a movie that was leaving Criterion Channel, and I wanted to watch it because I really, really love movies from like the 1930s to like the 50s and 60s. I think it's just like an interesting decade with like the Hays Code, plus it's just, I don't know, there's something about movies then that just kind of hits me really, really, I don't know what I'm trying to say there. Next, I watched Safe and 12 Angry Men, which were a couple more 1001s that were leaving. I guess I thought I had watched them all, but I guess I didn't. Then I watched both of the Crank movies. I do not like those whatsoever. I totally get that they're supposed to be kind of like parodies, farces. They're supposed to be funny. It's a joke, but yeah, did not sit well with me. I did not enjoy them at all. Then I watched the last 2 Jurassic Park movies that I have not seen. Yes, surprising. I've seen all of the Jurassic World movies. I've seen the first Jurassic Park, but I have not seen Lost World or Jurassic Park 3. Then I watched The Skeleton Dance, which is a short by Disney. Well, it says it's directed by Walt Disney, but it's an Of Iwerks movie. It even says so, like, in the tag at the beginning. It's very easily found. I think it's on, like, Walt Disney Animation's YouTube channel. That's where I watched it. I also watched a couple Batman movies, Batman Returns and Batman and Robin, because I thought I had seen one of them, but I hadn't. So I watched both of those. I also watched Raw Deal. This is when I started my Arnold Schwarzenegger kick. I went and watched a ton of Arnold movies because I watched him in Batman and Robin. I was like, you know what? I really like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think he's a really underrated comedic actor because he doesn't do it on purpose. I think the comedy of him is the fact that he's a lot of the times doing things sincerely. So I watched Raw Deal. I watched Terminator 3 and Terminator Salvation. You know, they're movies. I also watched Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium, which I really fully enjoyed. I did not think I would like it. I thought it would be a lot of a really kids movie-esque, but I really liked it, and Dustin Hoffman's performance in it is like fantastic. It's probably my favorite Dustin Hoffman performance. I think I went a little bit on, I only watched 2, but I watched a couple rock movies, Faster and Snitch, Deep Blue Sea, because I wanted to see that Sam Jackson death scene, and it does not disappoint. It's like famous. If you have not seen Deep Blue Sea and you don't know what I'm talking about, just watch Deep Blue Sea for that Samuel L. Jackson death scene. I also watched Stranger Than Fiction, which is a Will Ferrell movie. I didn't think I had seen it, but I had vaguely remembered seeing it, and I think I kind of got it mixed up or like a little bit entangled with the Ricky Gervais movie about lying, The Invention of Lying, which I think I've seen both of them, but I don't quite remember because I think they came out around the same time, like mid-2000s. I also watched Planet 51. It has like The Rock in it. Rock voices like the Earth person, and it was not fun. I think I ended up watching that at like 4 times speed just to get it over with, and it didn't make a difference. Like, made no difference whatsoever to what I was experiencing. And then I watched a ton of true crime documentaries on Netflix. Operation Varsity Blues about the college admission scandal, the documentary on Bikram, the yoga guru. Athlete A about the, what's his face? They don't even have him on here. Larry Nassar. But I really like the fact that I found out in that the hometown newspaper that I read growing up, or, I saw, like, my parents read it growing up, started that report. Or broke that story, I guess is the word you're supposed to use. I also watched The Ripper, which is a documentary, or maybe it's a docu-series about this guy who was pretending to be Jack the Ripper, but in like the 1870s-ish. Conversations with a Killer, the Ted Bundy tapes. That was interesting to kind of hear the things coming out of Ted's mouth versus like hearing them from like survivors and cops and stuff, which they also had those interviews in there as well. Or it's a fictionalized version of Ted Bundy, like the Zac Efron movie, but that was good. Hell in the Heartland, which was a documentary on HBO. That was interesting. It wasn't like probably the best one I've seen, but it was an interesting one. Memories of a Murder, the Nielsen tapes, that was interesting as well. It was very similar to the Conversations with a Killer, where it's the actual serial killer doing a lot of the narration because it's his tapes. Paddington, I watched both Paddington movies. They were very cute, surprisingly cute. And then I watched all 3 Bad Boys movies, which aren't really my jam. I compared them in the review of the last one to Lethal Weapon, the Lethal Weapon series. But we honestly, like, if we didn't have Lethal Weapon, we wouldn't have Bad Boys. But yeah, like, Bad Boys is just not my thing. I liked Lethal Weapon a little bit better. Some more true crime. Also, like, I watch a lot of true crime. The Confession Killer, The Pharmacist, Who Killed Garrett Phillips are all great crime. Like, I really just love crime docuseries, documentaries on Netflix, even if they're not great. Like, a lot of people say they're not great, but I find them very fascinating. I kind of hold on to every single word that's being said. So I enjoy them a lot. And if you enjoy true crime, that kind of stuff, you probably will enjoy them as well. I'm just going to skip over the next three. I just watched the Kissing Booth movies. There's nothing to say there. They're bad. I also watched Going to the Mat, which is a DCOM. I think it was a DCOM. It was listed on the DCOMs on Disney Plus, so I'm assuming it is. But it's got Andy Lawrence in it. He plays a blind guy who starts wrestling. Kind of interesting. I thought I had watched it when I was younger, but I guess I didn't. And then I watched, these were the movies that I was supposed to watch for the 1001 this month, which was Jeanne Delman 23 Quai du Commerce 1080. Oh God, I don't know French. I'm sorry. But this is basically kind of a day. It's not like a day in the life. It's a couple days. It's very boring. It's very slowly paced. But my review of it was, it's literally the most boring yet interesting film ever made. And it's one that I've been wanting to watch for so long. My film professor told us about it in school. I don't know why they never showed it to us. I understand why, because it's almost 4 hours long. But it is absolutely fascinating, and the end is like the last, I think it was 20 to 30 minutes of the film are worth the entire wait through the rest of it. And it's just, I don't want to spoil the end if you haven't seen it, but it's really great. If you are into film history, this is a movie that you probably will, if you're into artsy fartsy movies, this is a film you probably would like. The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp. It's a well done film. It's very long as well. I found it a little bit boring, but I thought it was also very well done. Woman in the Dunes, I also found kind of boring. I believe it is Japanese. It's from Japan. Yeah, it's from Japan, and it's very interesting. It is I'm not going to say the full word because, it's YouTube. They'll probably ding me for saying it, but it's a mind F. It's kind of boring, but at the same time, it's very just cerebral. Manila in the Claws of Light. I didn't enjoy this one as much. I thought this one was just kind of boring overall, but it is kind of a well-done film, and the journey through it is interesting. I also watched Reminiscence that night. God, no, no. It's not fun. It's the only good thing about it is Hugh Jackman. I love Hugh Jackman, and that's about it. That's all. If you like Hugh Jackman, watch it. Then the next day, I watched a couple kids' movies while I believe I was editing the podcast. Yeah, I'm weird like that. I watch the movies while I'm editing an audio thing, but I watched Spies in Disguise, Dolittle, and Mr. Popper's Penguins, which they're kids' movies. They don't really need a whole lot of attention being paid to them, and you can still kind of figure out what's going on. And then I watched Man of Steel because that's the only DCEU movie I think I haven't seen. So I finished that off. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. It's maybe like top 5, like number 5 of all DCEU movies. There's only like a couple that I actually enjoy and will rewatch again, which is really just, I think, Birds of Prey and The Suicide Squad. And then kind of like the first Wonder Woman movie. And then a little bit of Shazam in there too. And then maybe Man of Steel. But then like once the Batman comes out, that's going to be like the Batman at the top, with Robert Pattinson. I also watched the last 2 of the Beverly Hills Cops movies. I watched the first one a long time ago. I did a 1001 video on it if you want to check that out. It's somewhere on my channel. I really love these. They were leaving HBO, so I wanted to watch them before they left. I also watched Be Cool, which is a sequel to Get Shorty. I love Get Shorty. This is not good at all. That was also leaving HBO. So was 40 Days and 40 Nights. I watched that as well. I watched Barry Lyndon. It is a 1001 movie. That was also leaving HBO. That was interesting. It was a Kubrick film, and it felt like a Kubrick film, but at the same time it didn't. It was very weird. I was very bored throughout it. It's a well-made film. It's a Kubrick film, but I just didn't enjoy a lot of what was happening. Monkey Trouble, which is another kids film, that was also leaving HBO, but it had been on my list to watch for a while just because I feel like I had remembered watching it when I was little, but I didn't watch it didn't remember anything when I had watched it. I think I might have been confusing it with Dunstan Checks In. Now there are a couple movies that were leaving the HBO platform, because that's another thing that I apparently do, is watch movies that are leaving HBO as well. Astro Boy, Some Came Running, The Treasure of Sierra Madre, Commando Strike at Dawn, The Sea Shall Not Have Them, The Last Angry Man. Oh, wait, hold on. Last Angry Man is something different. But I think The Sea Shall Not Have Them was an HBO. Maybe that's a Criterion. I don't remember where I watched it. I did watch it on Criterion. Sorry, you guys. I'm all over the place. Some Came Running, I believe. That was a 1001. That was on HBO that I watched. Also, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre was a 1001 on HBO that I watched. And then Commando Strike at Dawn, The Sea Shall Not Have Them, Last Angry Man, Sons of the Desert, Detour, Knock on Any Door, Hold Your Man, Red Dust. I think some of those were leaving Criterion, some of them were leaving HBO. Watch those. Some of them were 1001, some of them weren't. There is, I think, a list to all of my, the 1001 movies that I've watched, either in the description, but I know there definitely is one on my Letterboxd. That's what I'm trying to say. There's a list on my Letterboxd of all of the 1001 movies that I've watched. I watched Jackie Brown because it was leaving HBO, but I thought that it was a 1001. It wasn't. Battle for Terra, animated movie that was leaving HBO. It's not great. Replicas, Keanu Reeves movie that was leaving HBO, not great at all. I watched a couple new Netflix movies. Sweet Girl with Aquaman. I did not enjoy it. There was a twist in there, though, that did bring my score up a little bit. I did not see that coming. I watched Beckett with John David Washington, and it was interesting. It was really good. I didn't think it would be that great since it was like a Netflix movie, but John David Washington can act the heck out of anything, so he did really good. I really enjoyed watching him in that. Next was Coda, which is an Apple TV Plus original movie. I really, really enjoyed that as well. It's very cute. It was a romantic comedy that I didn't like, kind of a romantic comedy, like a teen romantic comedy. I didn't realize that was going to be happening. I didn't realize it was going to be a romantic comedy. I thought it was going to be more of like a family dramedy kind of thing. The next movie I watched was Spider-Man Far From Home, because that same day the Spider-Man trailer was released. I also watched Carefree, Shall We Dance, The Barclays of Broadway, On Moonlight Bay. I believe those are all Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers movies that were leaving HBO, so I had to watch those. I've only seen 2 Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers movies before that, so I love them. I love movies where they focus on the dancing and things like that. They don't do that anymore. Next, I watched The Sandlot, one of my co-hosts on my podcast. It was his birthday. That was the movie that he had picked for that day or for that episode, and this is probably going to be a huge thing, but I did not like The Sandlot at all. It was not my thing. It was cute. There were a couple laughs, but The Sandlot was just not my thing. Next, I watched a couple other movies. The Celluloid Closet, which is a documentary about queer cinema, and that was really interesting. It was another film that was leaving Criterion, and it wasn't one I was planning on watching, but then I read a little bit about it, and I was like, you know what? I should watch this. It's interesting, and it's something that I don't really know a lot about, so it was interesting to learn. I also watched Billy Elliot, Countdown, PT 109, Mom and Dad Save the World. They were all, I don't think Mom and Dad Save the World was, but the other 3 were movies that were leaving HBO that seemed interesting, but Billy Elliot was the only interesting one out of the 3. PT 109, I think, was about JFK, and it was made while JFK was still in office. It's about when he was working in the army. Yeah, well, not great. I watched Mom and Dad Save the World, which is really funny. I did not think about how funny I didn't realize it would be that funny, and it was good. I think it's still on HBO. I recommend watching it if it still is. Bob Ross, Happy Accidents, Betrayal, and Greed is a great documentary about Bob Ross. No, it is not about him being a bad person. He is still the great person we know and love. It's something different, and it's really good. Also, Long Shot, it's a short true crime documentary on Netflix. That's really interesting if you enjoy baseball. Larry David, Curb Your Enthusiasm, true crime, any of that stuff, I recommend it. Tread, which is another true crime docu-series about this guy who got mad and drove a tractor trailer? I don't know, some kind of farming construction equipment through his small town. Interesting. Nail Bomber, The Manhunt, and that's about this guy who just planted nail bombs throughout this market. He was just a racist, homophobic asshole. I think it was in London. Yeah, really bad guy. Interesting documentary. Children of God was it was one of the very few cult, true crime, serial killer documentaries, docu-series that I did not enjoy. It was just kind of boring, and it made me mad about, the mom complained about how much she hated it there, and never tried to leave, but I understand the psychology behind it all. They kind of pulled her in and she felt like she couldn't leave, but there was just so much shit, and it's you complain about it, and then when you finally leave, and at the end she joins another cult. And then I was going to see Candyman. This is the day that Candyman 2021, the Nia DaCosta movie, came out, and so I watched all 3 Candyman movies. I really liked the first Candyman movie, the 1992 one, but I did not like the other 2, and then I decided not to go see Candyman that day because it was too late and I did not feel like leaving. I also watched Language Lessons, which is a new film that the company that I work for is releasing. It's very good. If you see it pop up in your theaters, I think it is this week, this Friday it comes out in theaters. Maybe it was last Friday. I don't know. If you see it in your theaters, go check it out. I think it's also available. I should know this because, I handle all of that scheduling stuff, but I believe it's also available to rent on most platforms. I recommend checking it out. It's Mark Duplass and Natalie Morales. They're very it's just such a cute, heartwarming movie. I highly recommend it if you need some happiness in your life, especially with the pandemic. Some more true crime, John of God. I watched this. Yeah, John of God, The Crimes of the Spiritual Healer. It's fascinating. Fascinating. This guy was just insane. He's all that. No. Go watch She's All That instead. You don't need to watch this. I also watched the Amanda Knox documentary on HBO. That is fascinating. Casting John Bonet, it was not as great. Kind of the same with the Children of God documentary. It was okay. It was kind of weird. That night I watched Date Night. I had a FaceTime movie date night with my best friend who lives back in Indiana still, and we watched Date Night, and it was fun. I kind of vaguely remembered watching it when when it first came out. Then I watched Vacation Friends, which was okay. It was a new movie with John Cena and Lil Rel, and it was interesting, but it's not a movie I'd ever watch again. I watched some more Arnold with Junior, and then I watched The Rundown. It's mainly The Rock and Sean William Scott, but not The Rock. The Rock is in the whole time. Arnold has a very brief blink and you'll miss it cameo at the very beginning of the movie. I thought he was in it more. And then I also watched Chappaquiddick, which is this movie that came out in 2017, and I was like, oh, I kind of want to see that. Ed Helms is in it. I completely forgot about it, and then I was watching a video, and they made a brief reference to what's-his-face, Ted Kennedy, and it just brought back this flash of memories about Chappaquiddick, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go watch that in the middle of what I was watching. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go watch that movie. Yeah, ADHD. That's what ADHD does. And then I watched some more Arnie, Conan the Barbarian, and Conan the Destroyer, and then after that I went on a little bit of a Planet of the Apes binge with the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes, and then the rest of the original Planet of the Apes from 1970 because, I don't know, I just wanted to watch them. And the first Planet of the Apes was actually my first 1001 video on here, so if you want to see that, check it out. It's somewhere on the channel. Some more true crime. Shiny Flakes, which is this interesting, weird documentary on Netflix. It's all in German, and it's about this guy who basically was a drug lord from his childhood bedroom. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann. If you don't know about that, my battery's going to die soon, so I'm going to try to go through this quick. It's a very interesting about this little girl who gets kidnapped in Portugal, and it's just her family tries to find her. And Have You Seen Andy, which is about this little boy who gets kidnapped, and you think that it would be, like, this is kind of a spoiler, so you think it would be like a, like, I don't know the word for it, cold case. You think it would be a cold case, but it's not. It's like very obviously, like, they know who did it. But yeah, so that kind of let me down, but it was interesting, like the relationships between people. Heir to an Execution was okay. It was just about this girl learning about her grandparents who were, I think, Soviet spies or something. They were like something with Nazis and the Soviet Union or something like that. I don't quite remember it all that well, obviously. It was very forgettable. Alabama Snake, which is about this guy who tried to kill his wife with a snake because their religion circled around snakes, and it was weird. It was interesting, though. I also watched No Man of God, which is a new narrative feature about Ted Bundy, but this time instead of like the Zac Efron movie about Ted Bundy, it's less about Ted Bundy and more about Elijah Wood's character, who is an FBI agent, a profiler, who becomes like he's like the most prolific profiler in like the country now, but it's more about his like moral dilemma becoming friends with Ted Bundy. So that's interesting. And then last night, like, because I'm recording this the next day, I finally went and saw Candyman, the new Nia DaCosta one. Absolutely enjoyed it. It was a perfect sequel to the original. If you have not seen the original 1992 Candyman, and you haven't seen this yet and you want to see the new Candyman, I recommend watching the first one and then watching this one. The first one, I believe it's very easy to watch. It is just, on Peacock, streaming for free. So there you go. You can easily go watch it on Peacock for free. And then last night, before I went to bed, I watched The Real Right Stuff, which is I think it's a Nat Geo. Yeah, it's a Nat Geo documentary kind of centering around the book The Right Stuff. It's not the actual movie The Right Stuff or the series The Right Stuff that's also on Disney+, but it's about like launching men into space. It's very interesting, and also, like kind of like what Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos did, where they kind of like went to the tip of space. These guys, they kind of did like the first two guys that were shot into space, the first two Americans. They went to the tip of space and then came back. So, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk aren't too different, I guess you can say that. That's everything that I watched. I've already watched a couple things today, but that's everything I watched in the month of August. It's a lot. I know, I'm exhausted. This is going to be a very long video, and if you, got this far, thank you so much. I appreciate that watch time. I haven't really been watching much TV. There has been a Harry Potter marathon on this week. I don't log any Harry Potter movies because I watch them a lot, a marathon on TV like every other week or every once a month pretty much on like Sci-Fi or USA. And I do watch, Avatar once a week for the podcast that I have on my Patreon, if you want to check that out. I mean, I watch like Burn Notice once a week or a couple of times a week in the morning when I'm working out, but that's about it. I don't watch a lot of TV lately, usually just Twitch. But that's everything I watched. It's a lot. Let me know some of the things that you guys watched this month in the comments last month in the comments down below. If there's anything that you think I should watch this month, let me know. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I really, truly do appreciate you. Whoever you are, let me know who you're in the comments down below, and let's be friends. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe if you're new, because I love talking all things movies, TV shows, filmmaking, mystery, all that fun stuff. And I'll see you next time. Bye.